The furious warrior acknowledges the presence of a high-level dungeon boss in their immediate vicinity. The narrator reveals the colossal level 67 boss is Shivalarmus the wingless dragon, dominating the frame with its fiery presence. The warrior and his party members, the tank and the mage, scramble to brace themselves against the immense heat and danger. The dragon opens its massive jaws, charging a huge, volatile orb of fire for a devastating blast attack. The female mage cries out that the attack is incoming, worrying that her protective barrier cannot hold out for another hit. The armored male warrior is suddenly distracted, his eyes widening in surprise at something unexpected happening nearby. The image focuses on the quick steps of an unknown, frail-looking creature running across the burning dungeon floor. The gigantic dragon throws its head back, letting loose a powerful, bright stream of golden energy towards the ceiling. Below the beast, a small, green goblin is visible, clutching a sack and standing defiantly in the fiery environment. The goblin pulls its mouth back into a wicked, triumphant sneer, showing a cruel side to the seemingly weak creature. Suddenly, a blinding ray of golden light slams down onto the dragon, overwhelming the powerful monster in a sudden flash. The dragon is enveloped in the explosion as its gigantic body is destroyed and crashes onto the ground. The stunned warrior turns, wondering in disbelief if a mere goblin managed to kill the high-level dragon in a single hit. With the dragon's massive carcass on the ground, the warrior questions why a monster would attack another of its kind. The armed warrior points urgently, directing everyone's attention toward a mysterious figure standing on the nearby hill. He lets out a wide, triumphant smile, instantly realizing the figure must be the one who summoned the overpowered goblin. The scene abruptly shifts to the main character, a young man in a hard hat, carrying heavy material at a construction site in the real world. He asks a colleague where to put the bag, thinking the smiling worker must be having a much better day than himself. He sets down the material, reflecting on his miserable life as an exploited worker doomed to endlessly grind for survival. The narrator explains that he is a low-class nobody, grinding in the trashiest dungeons with no chance of ever escaping his life. The young man takes a sip of water, dismissing the idea of getting rich through a lottery or luck as an unrealistic fantasy. He laments that a goblin player will always remain a low-tier player regardless of how many levels he gains. His attention is drawn when he overhears a couple of workers discussing the lucky Mr. Cha, who recently got a hidden class. The workers explain that Mr. Cha is playing Heaven's Door, the fully immersive VR game that has been trending for a while. The game's realistic experience attracts countless users who want an escape from the harshness of their daily lives. A powerful purple snake and an armored warrior are shown, illustrating the challenging fantasy setting of the game. Although the game devices are costly due to the new technology, adapted internet cafes allow broke users like him easy access. The game's incredible demand resulted in players investing massive amounts of real money into the game's gold currency. This gold can then be easily exchanged for real-world currency, completely changing the virtual gaming industry. The young man admits he found the game quite enjoyable at first, especially in his initial days of playing. In the game, the player strains against a rock wall, preparing to execute a powerful strike with his pickaxe. He uses the skill Rock Strike, managing to chip away at the stone and acquire a small handful of mining materials. The young miner screams out his intense frustration over having to do the same manual labor both in real life and inside the game. He cries, lamenting that he just wanted to get strong enough to find a partner and live a happy life. He curses his fate, feeling like a perpetual low-class miner despite the game's high promises of freedom. Suddenly, he extracts a massive, glowing superior healing stone, instantly realizing it is worth a fortune. He laughs maniacally, licking the gem and declaring the massive haul made the dreadful and painful grinding worthwhile. A beautiful white-haired female magician, Catherine, startles him by apologizing for the interruption. The young man is instantly flustered, realizing she is attractive and part of a high-level party. Catherine compliments his high-level mining skill, which she's observed every day, and explains their dilemma. She explains their party is blocked by a massive, glowing blue ore formation that prevents their progress into the dungeon. She humbly admits that her party members look strong but are useless at mining and lack the necessary skills. Catherine subtly flatters the low-level miner, asking for his help to break the ore and move forward. The miner hesitates, explaining that his combat level is too low to venture deep into a dangerous dungeon. The dwarf party member interjects, assuring the miner they will handle all the monsters and he just needs to tag along. The nervous miner questions why the dwarf cannot mine the ore, pointing out his race's stereotype. The dwarf is instantly offended, asking if the miner believes his race should only be good for mining. The miner pauses to think, realizing he could gain passive experience points and possibly loot by joining the party. He concludes that getting experience and picking up a few stones makes joining the group a beneficial deal. However, he worries intensely about his safety deep inside the dungeon, where dying means permanent loss of the character. Catherine suddenly grabs his arm and leans in close, explaining that her ideal man has powerful mining forearms. The young man is instantly swayed by her flirtatious words and enthusiastically agrees to join her party. A quick shift back to the dungeon shows the miner holding his pickaxe tightly, looking extremely worried. He notices the level 7 grey wolves are low level, but he immediately panics when he sees his own level is even lower. A pack of snarling grey wolves surrounds the terrified low-level player. The lead wolf lunges viciously at the miner, who screams out in pure, unadulterated panic. Catherine shouts at him to stay still as she begins casting her powerful destructive spell. She unleashes a massive salamander flame attack, instantly incinerating the entire pack of hostile wolves. The high-level magician asks the shell-shocked miner if he is uninjured and completely alright. The young man manages a stammered reply, realizing she is incredibly strong after seeing her wipe out the wolves in a single hit. Catherine adjusts her eye with a feigned expression of concern, warning him that the dungeon is dangerous. She demands that he not leave her side, which the young miner completely misinterprets as a romantic declaration. The swordsman effortlessly dodges 2 incoming wolves, telling the miner there is no need to panic because the dungeon is simple for them. He draws his sword and prepares to eliminate the remaining mobs with quick, professional movements. The swordsman swings his blade, slaying the wolves instantly with high damage numbers appearing in the air. He explains that they simply needed the miner's skill to break the mysterious ore and proceed to the next area. The swordsman reveals that wasting valuable skill points on useless skills like mining would be an unacceptable choice for them. The young man stares at the swordsman, feeling the sting of the dismissive words about his trade. He internally rages, wondering if the entire party sees him as nothing more than an expendable joke or a tool. The screen darkens, emphasizing the miner's rising anger and frustration at being used. He slams his pickaxe down, declaring that the swordsman has gone too far with his insults. He screams that he may not have any combat skills, but he won't tolerate being disrespected by anyone. The miner raises his pickaxe high above his head, preparing to strike the ore with all his might. He strikes the ore wall, admitting that the swordsman is right about his lack of combat skills. He repeatedly strikes the ore in frustration while the swordsman and the dwarf discuss their initial intelligence on the dungeon. They exchange worried glances, questioning if they received the correct information about what lies beyond the ore. The swordsman glares, warning the dwarf that the person who gave them the wrong intel will pay dearly for wasting their time. The miner continues his furious grinding, internally yelling about constantly being insulted for his status. He is used to the abuse, but the fact that he is numb to it is what truly fuels his endless rage. He swings his pickaxe, connecting with a powerful, dazzling strike against the stubborn ore. The surface of the massive crystal ore cracks sharply from the tremendous, repeated impacts. The large rock mass crumbles into dust, suddenly revealing an opening behind the wall. The party stares at the newly revealed path, shocked by the discovery of an ornate entrance. The young miner stares in awe as the path reveals a magnificent, brightly lit white gate. He instantly realizes they have found a hidden dungeon, which can completely change a player's destiny. The swordsman gasps in extreme excitement about the sudden discovery of the special dungeon. The dwarf is also thrilled, knowing these unique dungeons give special rewards, including a hidden class promotion. Catherine smiles ominously, her eyes glowing red while repeating the word "we" in a dubious, sinister tone. The young miner is ecstatic, thinking he can finally turn his life around just like the lucky player Mr. Cha. Suddenly, the swordsman strikes the miner's head from behind, immediately activating player kill mode. The miner collapses, gasping for air as he takes a significant blow to his health from the attack. Catherine and the dwarf stand over the fallen player as the dwarf mocks the inconvenience of needing a miner's skill. The swordsman calmly tells the down miner not to hate them too much, as they kept him safe while he mined. The miner stares up in anger, realizing he was betrayed and that the party knew about the hidden dungeon all along. The swordsman confirms the miner's suspicion with a smirk, calling him a moron. He explains they were wasting time and that he will now put the miner out of his misery since his use has expired. The swordsman raises his weapon and strikes the miner again, dealing the final blow to his character. The miner opens his eyes, finding himself alive but shaking, wondering if they spared him at the last second. The superior healing stone breaks into pieces in his inventory, having automatically revived him upon death. The miner screams in anguish, realizing he lost the valuable healing stone to the traitors. He violently slams his fist on the ground, completely enraged over the loss of his immense fortune. The miner looks up and sees the magnificent gates of the hidden dungeon are still standing wide open. He claws at the ground in furious determination, vowing not to walk away after losing his precious revival item. He promises to get in the way and leech off the treacherous party until he manages to turn his life around. The miner pulls himself up from the floor, declaring that he will no longer be ignored by anyone. He prepares to run inside, promising to exploit the situation and take whatever advantage he can get. He shouts his defiance as he launches himself toward the wide-open portal. The miner dashes through the open gate, entering the dark, hidden domain. He immediately stumbles and falls down a steep, winding staircase just inside the entrance. The player crashes to the floor, taking a small amount of damage and complaining about the presence of a steep staircase. He sits up, checking his remaining HP, confirming he is now deep inside the hidden dungeon. The central chamber features a colossal statue of a bulging-bellied goblin sitting on a royal throne. The player comments on the huge monument and finds it amusing that a weak monster like a goblin would sit like a king. He questions if this is truly just a goblin temple and worries that all the mobs will be low-level. The miner concludes that this must be a poorly designed hidden dungeon because it is located in a low-level area. He starts walking, noting the unsettling silence and wondering where the treacherous party has gone. The player's foot bumps into something lying on the cold stone floor, causing him to stop. He looks down at the unexpected object, confused by what he has stumbled upon. The miner screams in shock as he looks down to see the slain dwarf lying lifelessly on the floor. He instantly realizes the fallen figure is the dwarf from the party and wonders what horrible fate befell him. The dwarf's chat box appears, asking for a revive, but the miner knows he does not possess the required skill. The miner realizes the greedy dwarf is staying dead inside the temple to qualify for the high-level dungeon rewards. A huge, flashing red warning appears in the air, declaring that the high-level dungeon far exceeds his limits. The miner is overwhelmed by the dire warning, staring in terror at the glowing red message. He realizes the emergency voice accompanying the warning is actually the female magician's. A massive, pale hand lifts the swordsman's unconscious body high into the air. The colossal hand also clutches the female magician, Catherine, completely overwhelming her. The giant, naked monster, Geiger level 80, is fully revealed, completely horrifying the miner. He questions why this high-level abomination is present in a supposed goblin temple. He stares in utter disbelief at the monstrous creature, realizing it is level 80 and far too powerful for anyone here. The Geiger monster opens its gigantic mouth, bringing the struggling swordsman closer to its deadly teeth. The monster devours the swordsman in a gruesome, shocking bite. The miner covers his face in horror, remembering the VR game's terrifying commitment to realism. He recalls that the VR system minimizes pain for low-level mobs, but the pain is unmitigated for such a high-level beast. The game's technology provides a realistic sense of touch and pain, which is incredibly dangerous in this situation. The magician cries out desperately for help as she is crushed in the enormous creature's hand. The miner realizes being hit by a monster dozens of levels higher is a completely different, life-threatening experience. He screams that he cannot possibly help her against such a monstrous opponent. He recalls that the extreme trauma from death can lead to brain death, which the game calls retirement. The thought of the traumatic brain injury causes the miner to stare at the monster with a look of sheer terror. He turns and begins running away, refusing to be killed and retired by the grotesque monster. He justifies his flight, saying he is not the bad guy since the party members betrayed him first. The miner shouts that he is too weak and useless, unable to help them even if he wanted to save them. He continues his desperate sprint away from the towering danger. The player maintains his focus on surviving the dungeon, fueled by his anger and desperation. He looks back with a look of manic rage, determined to make it out alive no matter the cost. A holographic system message appears, stating the Goblin Lord feels kinship with him for his weak and cowardly nature. The miner stares at the message, crying in anger over the insult and the title Goblin Lord. He yells at the giant statue, asking if it thinks he chose to be weak and pathetic. The player screams that he is done caring and fully embraces the title of a pathetic goblin, finding a strange kind of liberation in the insult. Holographic text tells the miner that the Goblin Lord has fully promoted him to the hidden class, Goblin Summoner, which he desperately wants to decline. He stares at the notification panel in confusion, thinking it must be a terrible joke for a hidden class. The miner screams in a combination of rage and laughter, declaring he absolutely refuses to accept the strange class promotion. An immediate system notification overrides his choice, declaring him the perfect embodiment of Goblinkind and promoting him instantly. The terrifying monster, Geiger, lets out a fierce growl, staring intently at the young man who now has the hidden class. The miner realizes his time to escape has run out, and he is now backed into a corner by the giant monster. With no other options, the newly dubbed Goblin Summoner activates his signature skill, calling forth a goblin to fight. Purple electric energy flashes as the new summon appears with a dramatic entrance, which the miner comments is excessive for a lowly creature. The green goblin appears with its signature snarl, ready for action against the enormous foe. The miner concludes that it is still just a puny goblin, intending to use it as a distraction so he can make a run for it. He points a finger towards the Geiger monster, signaling the goblin to engage the monstrous enemy. The summoner orders the goblin to attack the Geiger with everything it has in its power. The Geiger turns its attention toward the new threat, extending an arm toward the goblin in a menacing posture. The miner gives a small, sinister smile, already preparing to flee the scene while the summon keeps the boss distracted. The Geiger opens its terrifying maw, and the summoner notes this is his last chance to escape the situation. The goblin leaps, attempting to strike the monster with its small club as a powerful energy blast erupts from the Geiger. The Geiger monster is instantly destroyed in a massive explosion, leaving the goblin summoner speechless in shock. The bewildered summoner sees multiple player XP increased messages flash across his vision in rapid succession. New skill notifications appear, revealing he has acquired 2 new abilities, Feed the Goblin and Walk the Goblin. The goblin thuds onto the ground, causing the summon XP to dramatically increase, confirming the creature is part of the system. Despite the tremendous victory, a system notification for the goblin reveals it is unable to level up further because it has reached its maximum level. The astonished summoner notes that his little goblin is already at max level. The Geiger monster is shown devouring the swordsman's corpse, which is being pulled into its massive, sharp-toothed mouth. The high-level monster finishes consuming the body with a brutal crunch of bones and flesh. The party's mage, Catherine, screams in horror and fear as she witnesses the monstrous display. Outside the game, the real-world Catherine rides in her VR pod, suffering immense pain from the traumatic experience. A man in a suit rushes over, horrified, asking the screaming Catherine what is happening to her. He desperately yanks the VR headset from her head to try and pull her out of the game. The man's eyes are wide as he recognizes her state of terror as a result of the traumatic shock. He realizes that Catherine has succumbed to the terminal state known as retirement. Back in the game, the goblin brutally smashes its club into a pile of unknown monsters, showing massive damage numbers. The summon lands another critical strike on the pack of mobs, causing the summoner's player level to increase. The goblin continues its deadly rampage against the nearby monsters, making the summoner level up once more. The summoner calmly picks up a drop, realizing the massive accumulation of low-level monster mana stones he is acquiring. He is elated, realizing he has managed to loot a massive amount of valuable crafting items, filling his inventory to the brim. The ecstatic summoner sits on his giant loot pile, checking his character screen, showing he has jumped to level 31 and earned a large number of stat points. The summoner smirks, realizing he accidentally cleared the hidden dungeon with his goblin, but since the party died, he had to die to get out. He notes that the little goblin wiped out all the mobs, helping him reach level 31 effortlessly. A system warning reminds him that the goblin's information cannot be accessed, keeping its true level a secret. He realizes a trash mob like a goblin shouldn't be this powerful and speculates that his unique summon must be a game glitch. The summoner bursts into maniacal laughter, deciding to exploit the powerful goblin until the developers patch the game bug. He declares his days of endless, miserable mining are completely over and his dream of reaching the top is now a reality. Back in the real world, the player is now dressed smartly, walking into the Nara bank to exchange his loot. The bank teller informs him that his items, including the wolf hide, are worth 97,001. The player is internally shocked that he can exchange his virtual items for real currency at a normal bank. He then asks the teller if she would like to purchase a few more of his high-value items. The teller is stunned as he mentions the Geiger's skin and heart items to sell. She confirms the items are extremely valuable, noting the total sum would be enormous. The teller's eyes widen as she is completely shocked by the massive wealth he possesses. She tells a co-worker she has to report this to her boss, causing the young man to wonder why she's leaving him. The bank manager pours a cup of tea, preparing to meet the young man in person. The manager welcomes the customer, introducing himself with a cheerful smile. The young man points out that the tea is not boiled, sitting uncomfortably in the formal setting. The surprised bank manager immediately apologizes for the cold tea, then asks why the young man is meeting with him. The bank manager suggests that he invest his massive amount of money with them. The young man is wary of the sudden sales pitch, pointing out that a clerk should handle investments. The bank manager is apologetic, revealing that the Geiger's legendary items are worth a shocking 230 million won. The young man stares at the immense figure, completely stunned by the extent of his newfound wealth. Back in the game, the newly rich player holds his goblin high above his head, celebrating his massive debt reduction. He laughs, realizing he loves his pet goblin, even though it's undeniably ugly and repulsive. He walks the goblin through the game's town, attracting whispers and stares from other high-level players. The offended player warns the rude observers that he is not the disgusting goblin they are talking about. A male player from the Evaton Guild approaches the summoner, glaring down at the creature. The guild member, Patton the Destroyer, prepares to attack the small monster. The summoner is horrified by the appearance of Patton, realizing he is known for being completely unhinged. Patton unleashes an attack, which the summoner manages to dodge, desperately yelling for the guild member to stop. Patton ignores him and attempts to strike the goblin, dealing a massive, high-number blow. The brutal attack throws the goblin backward, but the creature immediately retaliates with a counterattack. The goblin's counterattack connects, dealing massive damage to Patton, and a system notice reminds the player that pain is limited in PK mode. Patton collapses to the ground, dead, as a bystander notices a goblin killed a user. The summoner turns in a panic, realizing he is in deep trouble if the townspeople learn the powerful creature is his summon. A female assassin named Yunhyok the Shadow mocks Patton for being destroyed by a mere goblin. The assassin and the rest of the Evaton Guild glare at the summoner, threatening to make him pay for messing with them. The summoner is shaking in fear, realizing that killing the entire guild would be an equally terrible outcome. A female archer, Jion the Deadly, tells the assassin to let her handle the weak goblin. The summoner desperately tries to de-escalate the situation by claiming the goblin is a simple mob. The powerful assassin calls the young man a liar and prepares to attack the crowd. The assassin lunges forward, attacking an unassuming townsperson, killing him with a single stab. The archer angrily asks why the assassin killed an innocent player instead of the goblin. The assassin glares at the screaming archer, reminding her that their task is not just about a goblin. The archer attempts to fight back against the assassin as the terrifying goblin snarls nearby. The archer is shocked by the assassin's powerful attacks, calling out his name in disbelief. The assassin raises his hood, stating that his goal is to eliminate all Evaton members, including the archer. The archer manages to block the assassin's attack, but the goblin intervenes with its massive club. The goblin's club strikes the assassin, showing he takes 0 damage from the attack. The surprised assassin realizes that the millions of damage from the previous strike were not a glitch, but the goblin's true power. He realizes he cannot fight the overpowered goblin and decides to retreat. The assassin is suddenly hit from behind by an unseen attack, crashing into a nearby wall. The assassin is confused, unsure who or what attacked him, wondering if the goblin can deflect attacks. The archer screams at the stunned assassin, reminding him that the monster is still just a goblin. The assassin regains his composure, realizing the goblin's power must stem from some kind of trick. The goblin raises its club high above its head, preparing to strike the exposed assassin with immense power. The goblin unleashes a massive blow, hitting the assassin again and causing him to scream out in fear. The archer looks stunned, realizing the assassin was defeated and completely knocked out in a single shot. She turns, realizing the furious summoner and his max-level goblin are approaching her. She nervously asks the summoner what he wants, wanting to know his demands. The summoner yells that she and her party attacked him first, and now they will face the consequences. The archer is terrified by the summoner's maniacal laugh and the realization of his power. The summoner tells the goblin to silence the screaming archer, who is drawing a crowd. The crowd of players gathers in the street, pointing and whispering about the situation on the rooftop. The summoner is worried by the massive crowd gathering below and decides to make a swift exit. The goblin grabs the archer, silencing her screams and holding her captive. The crowd below is shocked to see the monstrous goblin is now sexually assaulting the woman. The player realizes he is completely doomed, having ruined his peaceful plan to exploit the game. He panics, yelling at the goblin to stop its horrendous actions against the female player. The crowd is now cheering the low-level player for standing up to the goblin that defeated the high-level Evaton Guild. The emotional player yells at the cheering crowd, telling them he is giving up his heroic effort. The crowd shouts their encouragement, urging him to continue his fight and defend the innocent woman. The player is utterly confused by the crowd's cheering, realizing they see him as a hero. He has an idea, realizing the crowd does not know that the powerful goblin is his summon. The summoner adopts a heroic stance, politely asking the goblin to release the lady. He screams at the goblin to release the woman, who stares in awe at her hero. The player looks up at the sky, repeating his heroic declaration of ending the goblin's reign of terror. The thought of being a hero protecting a damsel in distress causes the miner to smile maniacally. He steps closer to the terrified archer, warning her that he will spare her only if she keeps quiet about him and the goblin. The archer is quick to agree, promising to keep his secret safe and not tell a soul. The summoner smiles, delighted that he now has a hostage and a completely false, heroic reputation. He yells at the goblin, giving his final order to attack the monster in the name of justice. He activates the skill Walk the Goblin, placing a golden magical collar around the goblin's neck. The player yanks the goblin with the attached chain, sending it flying off the rooftop. The goblin crashes into the ground, smashing the ground with its tremendous impact. The summoner laughs, proudly holding the golden chain that controls the powerful creature. The impressed crowd realizes the seemingly weak player is using an incredibly powerful skill to control the goblin. The player raises his eyes towards the sky, fully aware of his destiny as the ultimate Goblin Summoner. He raises his head with a proud snarl, embodying the shameless tactics of his goblin companion. The former miner turns, revealing a sly smile to the horrified archer. The newly christened hero shouts his final orders to his new party, ready to take on the world. He gives one last snarl to the goblin, now fully embracing the wild and chaotic power of his new class. The crowd stares in silent awe as the powerful goblin attacks a nearby, unassuming tree with a single, devastating blow. The powerful attack instantly destroys the massive tree in a shower of tiny, wooden fragments. The cheering crowd celebrates his tremendous victory as he strides forward with his goblin by his side. The newly rich player walks away from the scene, looking forward to his completely new life. The screen darkens on the town, signifying the true beginning of the player's unpredictable adventure. He smiles a truly maniacal, unsettling grin, fully embracing his new, unconventional path to success. He walks off with the goblin, ready to use any and all shameless tactics to achieve his new dream. The summoner and his goblin fade into the distance, leaving the shocked townspeople behind. The goblin smiles a wicked grin, matching the terrifying expression of its new master. A single leaf blows across the street, confirming the calm after the unexpected storm. The young man realizes he has officially stepped away from his old life as a weak, low-level miner. His journey as a goblin summoner has just begun, completely changing the future of the entire game. He laughs one final, echoing laugh, ready for whatever twisted challenges lie ahead. The camera focuses on the ground, leaving the viewer wondering about the future exploits of the terrifying duo. The miner knows his future is now completely unpredictable, but he doesn't care. He stares at the goblin's satisfied smile, knowing they are both doomed to a life of villainy. He smiles back, finally feeling a sense of belonging with the disgusting monster. The two figures disappear into the distance, with the young man's confidence skyrocketing. The whole world is now his oyster, ready to be exploited by the shameless new hero. The low-level miner has finally found his path to success, even if it is a morally dubious one. His journey has already been full of betrayals and shocking events, and more are surely to come. The story leaves the newly formed partnership heading off into the distance, ready for their grand, chaotic adventures. The summoner is seen walking off with his goblin, keeping it constrained by the magical chain that makes the goblin happy. He stops, telling the growing crowd to move back, pretending that the goblin is a dangerous monster he is struggling to control. The female archer looks on in amazement, correctly guessing the goblin must be at least level 50 given its strength. The surprised onlookers realize that the monster is too powerful for any player in the beginner town to defeat. The summoner puts on a serious face, claiming he can use his skill to at least drive the monster out of town. He prepares to use Feed the Goblin, pulling out a sausage to lure the creature away from the innocent people. The summoner throws the sausage and then sprints towards the town gate to escape the growing crowd. He shouts at someone inside the town to immediately shut the gates behind him. The goblin dashes out of the town, chasing the sausage, inadvertently fooling the Evaton guild members. The heavy gate slams shut, closing off the beginner town from the dangerous goblin. The relieved townspeople stand silently, believing the terrifying ordeal is finally over. The player wipes his brow, checking if all the innocent people were safe from the destructive goblin. The crowd cheers wildly, praising the mysterious player for bravely chasing the monster away. The summoner smiles to himself, pretending to be exhausted after saving the town. The female archer notes that since the other guild members are dead and sent to the Cathedral of Resurrection, she is the only one who knows the truth. The summoner remembers the archer, realizing he had almost forgotten about her presence. The archer assures him she will keep his secret as promised, fully convinced he is the hero. The summoner's dark side emerges, plotting to exploit her further to ensure her complete silence. He tells her the Resurrection Sanctuary is a safe zone with infinite HP, preventing player killing by other players or monsters. He menacingly reminds her that he will constantly kill her at the resurrection point if she dares to tell anyone his secret. The terrified archer cries, utterly convinced that the supposed hero is a ruthless killer. She screams for help, but the players inside the town are celebrating their safety. Back in the real world, the player is resting in his VR pod, satisfied with his heroic performance, even though it wasn't planned. He smiles, realizing that pretending to be the hero has its unexpected perks. He thinks about Catherine's horrible fate, remembering her being crushed by the Geiger. He believes if he had his new powers back then, he definitely would have saved the attractive magician. The summoner remembers the goblin point he received from the Goblin Lord. He opens his character screen, revealing he has 1 goblin point, earned from being shameless. He opens the goblin skills shop, noting that most higher level skills are locked. He selects the unpurchased skill Assemble, curious about its immediate function. The skill immediately activates, making the goblin appear in the room and scream in terror. The summoner is terrified by the goblin's sudden presence, yelling at it to retreat instantly. He realizes Assemble is a summon recall skill, panicking because anyone finding the goblin in his room would cause chaos. An NPC knocks on his door, asking if the adventurer is all right after the intense action. The summoner shouts back, assuring the NPC he is fine and that they should go back downstairs. He then yells at the confused goblin to put down its club and immediately leave the room. He starts to talk to the goblin, realizing they are both outcasts who struggle in the world. He sadly concludes that they are similar and the whole world is full of terrible people who use the weak. The scene shifts to the Evaton Guild inside a busy tavern, welcoming the supposed hero. Patton the Destroyer approaches the summoner, thanking him for saving one of their members. The summoner nervously accepts their thanks, trying to act calm while surrounded by the powerful guild members. The assassin is surprisingly grateful for the heroic intervention despite their earlier conflict. The archer, still nearby, suggests the assassin does not need to be so cautious, as the player has no intent to fight. The summoner agrees that he does not want to fight, pretending to be utterly innocent of any wrongdoing. He explains his motive was purely selfish, as he wants something from the powerful guild. The assassin accepts the selfish motive, acknowledging that Evaton always pays its debts. The assassin offers to help the summoner with whatever he needs, ensuring the debt is settled. The summoner explains that he is level 30 and needs to leave the beginner area, asking them how to get to the next region. The assassin correctly guesses the next region is Fjorndal, revealing he knows of a person who holds the key to the next area. He points to the old warrior, Sungriel the Trickster, confirming he is the one who knows how to move on. The summoner grabs the old warrior's arm, instantly demanding to know everything about Fjorndal. The old warrior flinches, slightly intimidated by the summoner's aggressive stance. The elder clears his throat, acknowledging the summoner's impressive strength after fighting the powerful goblin alone. He speculates that the hero must be stronger than everyone in the room, including himself. The summoner dismisses the praise, knowing he would have been killed instantly if the assassin had attacked him. He explains the beginner region, Reve, contains 5 open field dungeons, like meadows and mines. The old warrior describes the 3 dungeon types, the open meadows, the dark woods, and the snowy mines. He explains that to leave the Reve region, a player must defeat the boss of the single raid dungeon. The summoner asks what exactly a raid dungeon is, curious about the high-level content. The elder explains that raid dungeons open at certain times with limited attempts and a time limit for each. These are the most challenging dungeons of each region, requiring high-level players to take them on. The summoner looks at the assassin, who explains that Evaton's initial goal was to clear the raid dungeon. The player is shocked to realize the true intent of their presence in the beginner area. The assassin admits that the raid dungeon was supposed to open yesterday, but the cursed goblin's interference prevented it. The summoner realizes they are stuck in the beginner region until the dungeon respawns in a month. He recalls his massive wealth and the powerful Geiger monster, furious at the prospect of wasting a month in the beginner town. The summoner yells that his powerful goblin could easily handle the tough raids, and he is stuck acquiring trash loot. He grabs the assassin's cloak, raging that waiting a month is completely unacceptable. The assassin calmly replies that the summoner is not the only one upset about having to wait. He taps the summoner's arm, stating that Evaton's debt to him has now been paid. The assassin and the rest of the Evaton Guild walk away from the infuriated player. The summoner stares at the archer, realizing he still has one last option to explore. The archer turns and walks away, leaving the summoner completely alone in the now empty tavern. The goblin is seen watching the guild members from a dark alleyway, awaiting its master's command. The goblin sniffs the air, detecting the approaching magical scent of the guild members. The goblin is excited, raising its head toward the night sky. The camera pans up to the night sky, showing the dark forest near the beginner town. A swirling red portal suddenly appears in the dark forest, crackling with dark energy. The old warrior is shocked by the sudden event, realizing the next boss raid has spawned immediately. The assassin stares in amazement, confirming the presence of the raid dungeon. A system message flashes in the middle of the empty tavern, confirming the boss raid has spawned. The summoner stares at the notification, completely stunned by the unexpected turn of events. Patton the Destroyer smiles, realizing the red portal is open for them to enter. The Evaton Guild members dash towards the portal, excited that the new raid dungeon has opened so quickly. The older warrior explains that he assumes all the high-level players cleared the raid yesterday. The assassin realizes that they are the only ones left to enter the new dungeon. The summoner smiles, realizing he was lied to by the Evaton Guild. He is furious that the assassin tricked him into waiting so they could clear the raid alone. The archer tries to reason with the enraged summoner, claiming it is all a misunderstanding. The assassin ignores the squabble, telling the summoner they are entering and asking if he wants to join. The summoner insists on joining the raid, refusing to let them take all the rewards for themselves. The assassin agrees, insisting that he must explain the inner workings of the dungeon before entering. He explains that the dungeon is a single chamber, meaning they will face the boss immediately. The old warrior and the archer prepare for battle, knowing the risk of the final dungeon. Patton the Destroyer lets out a war cry, ready to fight the boss with the entire guild. The Evaton Guild members rush toward the portal, eager to enter the raid dungeon. The assassin smiles, ready to lead the charge into the new dungeon. The remaining members of the Evaton Guild enter the ominous red portal. The summoner whispers to the waiting goblin, telling it to wait until he calls for it inside the dungeon. He is extra cautious after being betrayed and losing his valuable healing stone. He takes out the remaining superior healing stone, vowing not to be fooled by anyone again. The summoner dashes towards the red portal, preparing to enter the raid dungeon. He enters the portal, immediately appearing inside a gigantic, cold chamber. He realizes with a gasp that the raid dungeon is exactly what he expected. Suddenly, a colossal iron giant stomps into the chamber, preparing to fight the players. The summoner finds himself completely alone and surrounded by the Evaton Guild members. The angry old warrior yells at the assassin, demanding to know what trick he is playing. The assassin ignores the old man, telling him to run toward the portal to escape the sudden trap. The summoner screams, wondering if the assassin is joking about quitting a hidden dungeon. He continues his hysterical screaming, reminding them of the precious rewards hidden inside the dungeon. The assassin shouts back, explaining that the level 40 boss could injure their real bodies if they take a critical hit. The summoner dismisses their worries, noting that a 10-level difference is not enough for the traumatic shock. He explains that the worst they could suffer is a bloody collapse, emphasizing that rewards always come with risk. He reminds them of the legendary rewards hidden inside the hidden dungeons. The frustrated summoner calls the Evaton Guild members cowards, vowing to take all the rewards for himself. He raises his fist and prepares to use his skill assemble to summon his goblin. The goblin happily sits on the grass, ready to be called back into action. The goblin twitches its ears, waiting for the command to return to its master. The iron giant rushes towards the summoner, causing the chamber to shake violently. The summoner desperately screams for his goblin to appear instantly. The giant lands a powerful blow, killing the summoner instantly. Patton the Destroyer is shocked to see the legendary hero die so easily. The assassin glares at the old man, more concerned about the now closed portal than the dead summoner. The old warrior is also surprised, realizing the portal closed as quickly as a raid dungeon's. He realizes his monumental mistake, noting that he failed to consider that the raid dungeon could also warp into a hidden one. The colossal iron giant is revealed to be the boss of the hidden boss raid, towering over the terrified party. The player, now in the real world, is still wearing his VR headset, completely unconscious. He wakes up with a violent cough, shocked that a level 40 monster could one-shot him. He checks his level, realizing he forgot to use his accumulated stat points, which could have saved him. Back in the dungeon, the summoner's body lies on the ground as the iron giant stares at it. The assassin screams, using the skill assemble to pull the scattered Evaton Guild members back together. The archer activates her skill, Tailwind Arrow, sending a burst of wind towards the struggling assassin. The assassin absorbs the energy, increasing his movement speed to aid in the brutal fight. The old warrior explains that the two assassins are the quickest in the guild, ready to expose the enemy's weaknesses. The two assassins rush toward the iron giant, circling the gigantic monster. The iron giant lets out a deafening roar, trying to crush the annoying assassins. The assassin strikes the giant with his blades, but the monster is completely unharmed. An overlay shows the iron giant's silhouette with its weak points in red, confirming the assassin's strategy. The assassin checks with the other member, only to find that all their attacks did 0 damage to the iron beast. He explains that the monster either has impossibly high defense or something else is at play. The giant lets out another powerful roar, sending a wave of shock towards the attackers. The assassin is struck with a powerful, purple lightning attack, causing him to take damage. The warrior charges forward, using his skill Unrivaled Sword to strike the giant's leg. The assassin realizes that their attacks are not completely useless and they just need to find a way to deal continuous damage. The Iron Giant glares at the attacking warrior, revealing a passive skill, disdain for the weak. Patton the Destroyer yells that the Iron Giant's immunity to weak attacks is the problem. The old warrior calmly tells the raging warrior that the assassin is not their strongest attacker. He points to the archer, revealing that she has the most powerful single-strike attack, which she is hesitant to use. The archer activates the skilled Deadly Bow Strike, which increases her damage based on her missing HP. Patton yells at the archer to unleash her power, promising to buy her the time she needs. The warrior shouts his battle cry, empowering himself with a blinding flash of golden energy. The summoner, lying wounded on the ground, notes with panic that the warrior is deliberately drawing the monster's attention. The Iron Giant lands a massive punch, missing the warrior who successfully dodges the blow. Patton the Destroyer scoffs, swinging his great sword, suggesting the hidden boss is an easy target. The old warrior warns Patton not to underestimate the monster, insisting they cannot afford a single mistake. The old warrior uses his skill Pain Split on the warrior, sharing the next portion of incoming damage. The summoner watches from the floor, thinking the Evaton Guild is strong despite not having a single hidden class player. The archer focuses her energy, preparing to launch her powerful attack while the assassins flank the monster. The various guild members attack the Iron Giant simultaneously, distracting the enormous foe. The archer draws her bow taut, focusing her massive energy on the monstrous Iron Giant. The wounded summoner grabs his healing stone, convinced they might actually defeat the boss without him. The Iron Giant suddenly pauses its attack on the warrior, completely shifting its focus. Patton is confused by the unexpected halt in the monster's assault. He screams at the monster, realizing it has shifted its attention to another player, but it isn't him. The Iron Giant stomps the ground furiously, completely shattering the massive stone floor. The summoner props himself up, realizing the monster is targeting him because he is the highest level player in the room. He gets up, feeling powerful as the true main character who always appears at the last moment to save the day. However, the Iron Giant strikes the floor, killing multiple assassins in a devastating area attack. One of the assassins coughs up blood, having taken a severe blow from the monster's attack. Patton and the remaining assassins stare in horror as their fallen comrades' bodies lie broken on the floor. Patton screams in grief, mourning the deaths of his friends and raging at the destructive monster. The old warrior shouts back, warning the enraged warrior not to break their defensive formation. Patton ignores the old man, unleashing his ultimate skill Giga Slash at the enormous giant. Patton collapses after the powerful strike, while the old warrior activates Pain Split, attempting to absorb some damage. The old warrior coughs up blood, realizing his plan failed as he falls to the ground, dead. The summoner watches in complete shock as a notification announces the deaths of the warrior and the trickster. He screams in frustration, declaring the defeat of the Evaton Guild is not his fault. The assassin prepares to attack the giant, realizing the aggro of monsters automatically shifts to ranged attackers or healers. He notes that the warrior's taunt kept the boss briefly focused on him, despite the poor logic. The assassin understands that the revival of the summoner completely reset the monster's aggro values. He is enraged that the death of their entire team, including the tank, was due to the resurrected summoner. The desperate archer asks the assassin what they should do now, contemplating firing her uncharged arrow. The archer's health drops, showing she is at 46% health, which is still too high for her ultimate attack. The assassin tells the archer to keep fighting, explaining they still need the full passive stack for her ultimate attack to work. The Iron Giant roars, still too strong to be taken down in a single blow. The assassin, still agile and quick, tells the archer he will distract the monster while she charges her attack. He emphasizes that the archer's ultimate attack is their only chance to win the desperate battle. The archer tugs her bowstring, preparing to charge the attack despite the immense, draining cost. The summoner asks the archer if there is anything he can do to help the desperate party. The archer angrily shouts back that he is useless without his goblin and a complete hindrance to her. The summoner is shocked and hurt by the archer's vicious words, staring in utter disbelief. He realizes he is being treated like baggage and is unfairly blamed for the death of her teammates. He angrily reminds her that it's the guild's fault, not his, since he hid the goblin from them. He scoffs at her treatment, pointing out that she couldn't clear the dungeon without him. The Iron Giant stomps and roars again, completely fixed on the female archer. The assassin notices the monster is targeting the archer because of her glass cannon class. He dashes toward the giant, attempting to divert its attention with a reckless attack. The assassin strikes the giant again, hitting it with an unrivaled sword skill. The Iron Giant is furious, shifting its attention back to the assassin. The assassin rolls out of the way of the giant's stomp, narrowly escaping the devastating attack. The assassin continues his fast, aggressive assault, attempting to hold the monster's attention. He lands another powerful blow to the giant's head, dealing damage with unrivaled sword. The assassin charges forward again, ready to risk his life for the win. The powerful blow hits the giant, dealing heavy damage with unrivaled sword. The enraged giant turns its attention to the assassin, acknowledging him as a genuine threat. The Iron Giant focuses entirely on the assassin, preparing to end the reckless fight. The assassin smiles, realizing his gambit worked, but he is now out of mana. The assassin is unable to use his quick evasion skill, causing him to panic. The giant swings its massive fist at the exposed assassin, landing a critical hit. The summoner stares in shock as the final assassin dies in front of him. He lets out an enraged scream, blaming the fools for acting arrogant and getting killed. The archer screams back, blaming the summoner for the deaths and the total collapse of their strategy. The summoner shouts back, utterly refusing to believe they could have won without him. The Iron Giant turns its head, roaring at the two remaining players. The two surviving players scream in terror, facing the massive Iron Giant alone. The monster stomps the ground and roars, turning its gaze entirely on the archer. The archer realizes she cannot afford to charge her attack any longer and fires her bow prematurely. A warning sign flashes around the archer, distracting her from the fully charged attack. The summoner asks what she is doing, his expression turning into a sinister grin. He reminds her she can't move while charging her attack, realizing he can exploit the weakness. The terrified archer screams for him to stay away from her while she is defenseless. The summoner sprints toward the archer, ignoring her desperate pleas. He sprints at top speed, lifting the archer onto his shoulders, claiming 10 seconds is all she needs. The Iron Giant's massive fist slams into the ground, narrowly missing the summoner. The archer is shocked by the summoner's speed, comparing it to that of the assassin. The player is proud, having put all his stat points into dexterity to achieve maximum speed. He declares himself to be as fast as any assassin, if not quicker, due to his unconventional build. A system message appears, giving him a goblin point for arguing with the girl. The archer sits on the summoner's shoulders, ready to fire her now charged ultimate skill. She yells at the summoner to hurry up, fully committed to firing the devastating shot. He thinks about his earlier loss, determined to get back the value of the healing stone he wasted. The Iron Giant roars, completely confused by the strange tactic. The giant stomps, angrily shaking the ground with its massive weight. The archer finally releases the energy, firing her powerful deadly bowstrike attack. The archer is now at 1% health, firing the ultimate arrow directly into the giant's chest. The giant brings its hands down, initiating its powerful area of effect attack. The Iron Giant pulverizes the ground with its ultimate attack, sending debris flying everywhere. The summoner, protected by the archer's hair, is shocked by the sheer force of the skill. The area is devastated by a nova of flying rocks, threatening the injured archer. The archer is hit by the surrounding rocks, unable to land the final shot to the giant's weak point. The summoner is surprised as the goblin suddenly crashes through the portal, summoned back to his side. He screams in a combination of relief and rage, wondering why the goblin took so long to appear. The archer stares in utter disbelief at the max-level goblin that just appeared in the raid dungeon. The goblin is undamaged, acting as a small shield against the chaotic environment. The giant lets out another desperate roar, preparing to land its final, powerful blow. The summoner smiles triumphantly, realizing the giant's ultimate move is too late. The summoner is ready to end the raid, calling the moment the climax of their fight. The archer releases a fully charged arrow, sending a blinding light toward the giant. The giant's chest cracks and splinters from the devastating, powerful attack. The monstrous Iron Giant collapses into a million pieces, completely defeated. A system notification confirms that the hidden dungeon, Nest of the Iron Giant, has been successfully cleared. The shocked archer stares at the notification, realizing they actually cleared the hidden dungeon. The archer is rewarded with a massive experience gain, instantly leveling up multiple times. The summoner is equally rewarded, leveling up significantly from the massive experience gain. The summoner sprints to the giant's carcass, screaming about the precious rewards he has earned. He has finally achieved his dream of leveling up and acquiring massive wealth through a morally gray path. The goblin stands proudly by its master, ready to embrace a new life of chaos. The summoner looks at the endless possibilities before him, completely unbothered by the trail of destruction he left behind. The archer can only stare in disbelief at the madness that surrounds her.